Welcome back to the Trainwell podcast, where we inspire you to move more, to get stronger, and have fun. Today is a very, very special episode with our own Brittany Knight. She's a wonderful trainer. We talk about her experience and her story with type 1 diabetes. A lot of nuggets in this one. Grab your notebooks, enjoy. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Brittany. She's a certified personal trainer and sports nutrition coach. Her passion is simply in to help others move, fuel, and care for their bodies. She is a lifelong athlete from the Pacific Northwest. She's done it all. She's done swimming, cheerleading, volleyball, softball, and triathlon. She shares her story about when she was diagnosed with type 1 5 years ago. It's a phenomenal story. She specializes in working with individuals managing chronic illnesses, even autoimmune and eating disorders. But she really believes that health is your greatest wealth. She's committed to educating, encouraging, and supporting others on their fitness journeys.
I learned so much from talking to Brittany. It was really eye-opening, and I thought the best part of this episode was just hearing her positivity about this situation and also her expertise on it. Listeners, Brittany and I both get emotional on this episode. Joey was very uncomfortable with our emotion, but hopefully you can sit with us and carry through.
It's okay to cry, listeners, if you like to. Sit back, relax, enjoy the podcast. I want to start you with your cherry and your pit, though.
Yes. So my cherry is that I am newly engaged to literally love of my life. This guy is amazing. His name is Abel. We have a beautiful house and a very sweet dog. We're getting married in September. So we're just stoked. We're
September what?
September 20th.
Oh, nice. Ours is the 8th.
Oh, sweet. So many September weddings. I love that.
I'm divorced. It's fine though. I'm very happy.
Good. I'm happy to hear that.
You guys giggle like 16-year-old girls. You know that? Okay, give us your pit. Now, I don't think you can have a pit after being recently engaged. But I want to hear how he did it. Can you tell how he did it first?
This is a great story. We were in Mexico on Isla Mujeres, and I had no idea, which is like an island. So we're on this island. We're on a golf cart. I'm in a hot pink bikini, and he starts acting really weird. And he's like, "Let's go to the beach." And I'm like, "Yeah, what? Sure, dude." So we get there. We get on the beach. I start looking for shells. I'm like digging around in the sand, and there's nobody else on the beach but us. And I turn around, and he's on one knee, and I was like, "Oh, you're kidding me. This is happening. You're doing this right now." And he's like, "Heck yes." He's like, "You said you wanted it to just be us." And then we just got to watch the sunset together, and we went out to dinner. It was really amazing. And yeah, this is the big time school.
If you like it, you should have put a ring on it. We've been to Isla Mujeres. We're gonna have to work on your Spanish pronunciation, by the way. Isla Mujeres. Did you take the golf cart out like there's like a topless gal, and you're supposed to touch her stomach for fertility? Did you see that?
No, I missed that one. But the island's so fun. And my dude is Hispanic, so thank God he speaks the Spanish and I just show up because not good. Trying my best.
I can relate. Joey will say adios and I'll be like, "Sorry, what?" It's really embarrassing. But anyway, with that, Joey, are you embarrassed for me and for yourself? Have to do this with me?
No, it's okay, Dee. I see the light in you. So
I'm learning and growing. That's all we can ever be doing, right? Is learning and growing.
Tell us your pit, Brittany.
We did. I thought you did.
No, technically, no. That was all cherry.
All cherry, right.
The pit, I was trying to think. I was like, what's really happened that's been kind of a bummer? I lost a tooth. So I literally I'm missing a tooth. Oh. And that's my pit. It was really embarrassing. I had to get it removed. I actually wear a fake tooth, but I have a lisp when I wear the fake tooth. So I just ditched it. And you can only tell if I smile really big that there's no tooth there.
Wait, how did you lose it? Are you okay? Do you want to share or no? You don't have to.
Yeah, no, it's embarrassing. So a decade ago, I was actually doing a box jump And I felt something
No.
weird in my face and was like, that feels kind of hollow. I guess I shouldn't be concerned. Then I'm with Abel and I'm getting ready in the morning and I'm putting lotion on my face and I'm like, man, my face hurts. He's like, that's not normal. You should go to the dentist. And I was like, I don't really go to the dentist. I had braces. I had a very weird upbringing with dentistry. I don't want to go. And I went and they were like, you have a giant abscess growing in your face. That tooth is totally dead. You're getting it out today. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't anticipate for that. And like, we don't care. We're pulling. So they literally yanked it right out of my mouth. And I had to have surgery the next couple days. And I don't get the real tooth until May. Now I wear this fake one and it's like Abel's favorite party trick. When we go somewhere, he's like, take out your tooth. Show him your tooth. Are people like, do you play hockey? Like people are giving me these really cool stories about why it really happened. But the truth is I just didn't go to the dentist. So now she goes regularly.
That's what I was going to ask. Do you now go every 6 months?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Now I have to. Because I don't want to lose another one. Thank God it was back there and not like a front tooth. Then maybe I would have lied and said I played hockey. But
oh my gosh. Well, this was a valuable story to share because I've gone 7 years without going to the dentist. Luckily, I didn't lose a tooth, but it really makes you think. You only get this one set, and then that's it until you're 120. So
it's true.
You know what? Before we jump in, I'm going to start us off with something so silly. I have thought about this. If you could, Joey, did we talk about this here or was this just in my personal life? I can't remember. If you could lose these teeth to get your old adult teeth, would you want to? If you were around 50, let's say, or 40, you would start losing your adult teeth and you would get your fresh set. Because on one hand, it's like, okay, great, brand new teeth for going forward. And on the other hand, I would have to have tons of gaps in my mouth while they were growing in. So what do you guys think? We'll just do a quick poll.
I never want to lose any of my teeth ever again. This has been such an experience. You have to learn how to chew differently. I'm more aware when I go to the dog park and my tooth's not in. I'm like, oh, is someone going to be like, look at that weird girl with no teeth? So respect, and you're very humbled that these are very precious bones in your mouth that you need to take care of. So PSA, go to the dentist.
I love going to the dentist. My dad, all his front teeth are fake. He had to get crowns for each one. He went to Mexico to get them done because they're cheaper there.
Way cheaper.
And dental pain is the worst. I tried to fend it. I never had braces, thank God, but I had to get my wisdom teeth out. But the dentist said I waited 16 years too long because I got them out when I was 31. And that was brutal because my recovery was sucky. So I'll save the no teeth for the pumpkins we carve on Halloween.
But it would be cool to have a fresh set, perfectly white, fresh, strong teeth from 40 on. That would be nice, actually. No? Okay.
I believe you. I believe what you're saying.
All right. I mean, that's just, something to ponder. Listener, write us an email with your preference, what you think. If you would want to just keep these ones or get a new set around middle age.
I do know this. I do know that if you have really good heart health, it equates to gum health and mouth breathing and nasal breathing and all that.
And I thought it was reversed though. Don't they say something about the gums being the gateway to I think I'm mixing analogies, but yes, there's such a correlation.
Oh, no, you're right. You're right. If you have healthy gums, you have healthy heart health. Flossing is really good. And listeners, when you floss, do little C's around your tooth. So you go in there, cut out a C and then cut out a C and then move on.
Well, shockingly, we're not here today to talk about dentistry and teeth. We're actually here to talk about type 1 diabetes with Brittany, because not only does she have type 1, I don't know where it's going that. Not only does she have type 1, I think also everyone with type 1 is you become an expert in type 1, at least for yourself. So, Brittany, will you share your story with us of how you got diagnosed and just any aspect of your story that you want to share?
Absolutely. I was 25 years old. It was May of 2020, so a very chaotic year for all of us on the planet. About 3 months prior to May, I started to really not feel good. I was losing excessive amounts of weight for no reason. I was actively personally training in person at the time. So that was blowing my mind. I was like, weird. I'm eating a lot of food. I'm so thirsty, but I'm so tired and I'm getting really, really thin. And this one day, I went on this hike that I've hiked many times, and I get to the summit and I was like, man, I'm totally gassed. And I looked at my friend and was like, are you really tired? And they were like, no, dude, I'm totally fine. I was like, oh, how weird. 25 is like the peak. I guess this is as good as it gets. The next day, I woke up and I literally collapsed, like went to stand out of bed, fell to the floor. I called my mom and I said, Mom, I don't know what's going on. Like, I think I might be anemic. I start throwing out all these random things that I thought could possibly be wrong. And then I started to justify, like, maybe I'm not that sick and it's COVID. Should I really even go to the hospital and like waste their time? So I do. I get into the ER and they take my blood sugar and the lady's like, I just don't know what's wrong with you. And I'm like, yeah, beats me. That's why I'm here. Please figure it out. And then about 20 minutes later, this doctor flings open my curtain and he's like, type 1 diabetes, huh? And I was like, oh, no, 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 no. I'm just really tired. He's like, no, honey, you're not. Your blood sugar is 650. For all of our listeners out there,
Wow.
Our blood sugar should be well below 100 at any time. So when you go into this high or hyperglycemic episode, it's actually called diabetic ketoacidosis, which is when your body is no longer able to produce insulin. So the sugar levels just keep elevating because insulin's what lowers that sugar. And I was shocked, and they wouldn't let anybody in the hospital because of COVID. So they told my mom in the parking lot that I had type 1. And she texted me and she's like, what kind of diabetes do you have? And I turned my phone off. I was like, I'm just going to have to like silently suffer and just take this. I was there 10 days. I was hospitalized 10 days. I went from the ER to the med surg unit, to the ICU and then to the med surg unit. And they give you a crash course. They had one diabetic educator come in who was like, eat when you're low, take insulin when you're high, which is a very simple way to put diabetes and kind of educating on pancreatic failure. Thankfully, I had already had a degree in exercise physiology and health education, and I had one girlfriend who had type 1 diabetes. And I called her from the ICU, and I'm like, you're never going to believe what's happened to me. Most of the time with type 1, we're diagnosed as children. We call it juvenile diabetes, which is actually not as up to date or as PC as type 1 really could be because it does not discriminate. It doesn't care how old you are. It can pop up anytime in your life. My girlfriend was diagnosed in 3rd grade. So she had way more experience than I had, really leaning on her for support, what she chooses to do, how she chooses to care. So that was a huge change. I got admitted, left. I left the hospital and I was about 100 pounds. And when I first left, I went straight to the gym. I wanted to get back in there. I wanted to get into the squat rack. And I remember barely being able to even lift the barbell. And it was really mentally tough, like physically very draining. And then you're in this new world of what do I do now? What is the new normal for me? So I kind of took that very resiliently. I knew I was going to have to become an expert to really care for this so that I didn't get diabetic non-compliance and develop neuropathy, lose my eyesight, have to lose my toes or my fingers. There's so many components to diabetes besides just take insulin when you're high and eat sugar when you're low. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So can you speak to, so I have one client that I train. I still train this client in person. I've trained her for about 5 years now. She has type 1. So really I had no knowledge of type 1 before meeting her and talking with her. And the thing I've learned over the years just from becoming friends with her is, kind of like 2 things that are my biggest takeaways. One is how individualized this disease is for each person, like literally every person, and how any little thing can affect it, like your strength training, your eating, your hormones, your sleep. And on any given day, you may not know why you're going high or why you're going low. And so that kind of leads me to the second key takeaway, which is that you are acting as an organ for yourself that your body normally does naturally. So if people could imagine, and maybe you have better ways of explaining this, like how the heart just naturally beats. We don't have to do anything. And if it were to stop and then we had to take control of making sure our heart beat enough times and the appropriate amount based on activity, that's what you're doing, right, for your pancreas every single day, is making sure that it's functioning. So can you kind of speak to the individualization of this for each person, and then kind of how it feels to have to be constantly monitoring your body's functioning at all times?
Absolutely. It's a really great point to acknowledge that chronic illness and chronic autoimmune disorders are very individualized for each person. I think sometimes it depends on where you've started, what that diagnosis did, and then how you choose to act on it. For me, I'm really fun. I'm actually already a celiac. I've been a celiac 21 years, which is my first autoimmune disorder. So I was not necessarily new to this world. And then when it was all encompassing, like now I'm gluten free and I'm diabetic, what do you do with this information? You relearn strategies. I picked up running, which I never thought I was going to run, but it lowers my blood sugar. So instead of taking a lot of insulin, I would just go for runs, which at first was semi like a form of punishment. I was kind of grilling myself if I wasn't doing well, but I loved to lift. So I had to learn that when I lift really heavy, I'm exerting a lot of, not stamina, so what I'm trying to think, adrenaline. And adrenaline spikes my blood sugar. So there are moments where I might just be lifting and I'm in a class and then I'm spiking for no reason. You really have to give yourself grace. You have to acknowledge. And one of the wisest tips I ever got from the nurses I had when I was hospitalized was, number one, he told me no amount of lavender essential oil is going to cure my type 1 diabetes, which at first I didn't get, and now I understand. Secondly, is that it's not going to be perfect, and you really have to be okay with the numbers not being perfect.
Yeah.
As a type A, very structured individual, that's taken a lot of practice and a lot of grace and a lot of gratitude. And a lot of the reality of type 1 is that you could do the same thing every day and have entirely different numbers. Even my road rage will sometimes spike me. So it just kind of depends on the environment that you're in and what that does to your glucose levels. And you're right, the chronic hyperfixation of what blood sugar looks like, and the fact that my pancreas is just freeloading, right? It's just sitting in there. It's not doing anything for me. Sometimes I think I hear it trying. It like spits out what it tries, but there's nothing in the tank, which is annoying. So you have to dive into what's going to be the new normal and what are some of the remedies I can have that I know are going to guarantee a good day, which for me is movement and hydration and very, very low stress. Keeping those things kind of in a trifecta for myself really does me a big service during the day when I'm serving clients, when I'm serving myself. And that's not always the case for every type 1 when we rely more heavily on our insulin or on our CGMs and on the devices that we choose to use. But it's up to you as the type 1, as the individual living with this. To be on 100% of the time is really exhausting. So finding little breaks for yourself and leaning on community goes a long way with type 1 as well.
Brittany, you almost have this built-in governor to manage your stress, your hydration, everything. And I think it's worth highlighting that the body does keep score with everything. Like people just think exercise is stress, but driving behind someone slow is a stressor, especially when you have kids in the car.
Yes.
And anyways, I want to back up if we may. And for our listeners, can you define the difference between type 1 and type 2 diabetes for us and talk about what insulin is and the pancreas and whatnot?
Absolutely. The best way to put it is we call type 1 diabetes autoimmune driven, which means it can come at any point in your life. And we call type 2 lifestyle driven. So with type 2 diabetes, which good news is eradicatable, type 2 is predominantly relating to insulin resistance. So that beautiful pancreas, that beautiful organ that we all have, its main job is producing insulin. I like to use an analogy for this. If you think of a bathtub full of water, and the water is the sugar and the drain is the insulin, in an average individual, that drain's working 100% of the time. The sugar's never reaching the top of the bathtub. It's always able to cycle directly through the drain. With type 2, we just have a more clogged drain. It's still there. The insulin is being produced, but the sugar gets very, very high. And typically we use medication, predominantly an oral medication for type 2s that can help open up the drain, so to speak, let the sugar run out. For type 1, the drain does not exist. The drain is not there. It's simply a tub full of sugar, and we have to manually give ourselves insulin. That looks different for every individual. My form of medication for type 1 is multiple daily injections. So I give myself 1 to maximum 10 shots every single day of insulin, depending on, again, hydration level really affects blood sugar. I tend to be pretty high when I'm not hydrated well. I take insulin every single morning as a baseline so that there's a little bit in my body at all times so that that bathtub is not chronically overflowing. And with type 2, I call it the 2 M's, movement and medication tends to open up that drain the most effectively. A little bit of weight loss, some strength training, monitoring of carbohydrates, we tend to eradicate that. With type 1, it's every day. It's waking up, taking those shots every single day, keeping my insulin cool, keeping it next to me at all times. So those are the 2 main differences between type 1s and type 2s. There's even types 1.5 and types 0.5, which are slightly more gray area of insulin. People can still be hypoglycemic, meaning having low blood sugar without having any diagnosed pancreatic disorder or type 2 diabetes, where we just need to be more mindful of the glucose, choking on spit, excuse me, the glucose coming into the bloodstream so that people aren't having low blood sugar, which all of us can get. Low blood sugar also does not discriminate, and it feels very cruddy. Sometimes this is borderline passing out, feeling very sweaty, getting very white, what we call a change in pallor, moody. My family would call me Brittney in the moments that I was low before I was actually diagnosed with diabetes, which is now not as funny, but we still use it because she comes around. So being very aware, like, how am I feeling in these moments? And you're right. Sometimes it's when I'm driving. Sometimes it's somebody, like an altercation will drop my blood sugar. If I'm panicking about like my dog, that'll drop my blood sugar. So I just try to be very stable and keep it as in control as I can, but there's only so much you can do is the truth.
You are so positive. Like if and this is probably taken years to adapt to, like you've had to gone through some serious highs and lows with this. But can you speak to how you don't, because I can tell you do not let this type 1 diabetes define you. Like you're still going to go out and live your life. Yeah, you may have to take this insulin. Yeah, you have to make some modifications, but it seems as though you have become extremely positive on the other side of it. How do you coach people through that?
I appreciate that. So much of this is emotional regulation, and nothing's going to hold me back. Even when I was a child, as a celiac, I grew up as a chronic mover and a chronic athlete and kind of a chronic optimist. So I knew I could control this because there's been millions of other people with type 1 who've done the same as me. As well as Darian, I coach another type 1, and her experience is very different from mine. It's more fearful, more afraid to do these things because what if my blood sugar goes down? What if I'm out in the middle of nowhere and my blood sugar drops and there's nobody around? Those are very real fears. But one of my key coaching tools is preparation. If essentially failure to prepare is preparing to fail. So anytime I'm going to be running excessively, exercising, even when we were in Mexico, I packed a little cooler to keep my insulin cold. I learned how to say diabetes in Spanish. Don't quiz me now, can't remember, but I did try. That way, just in case something happens. And I'm also not afraid to ask for help. I mean, if I'm in a grocery store and I'm going down, like I will grab a stranger and be like, get me the juice. So sometimes being in an authoritarian kind of demeanor to know what I need to best support myself and not using it as a limitation. it's very real that the average person just gets to wake up and grab their keys and leave their house. And your girl carries a fanny pack full of 2 packs of juices and her favorite fruit snacks. So that if I go down, I'm going to have less of a bad time compared to going out there, living my life and falling down in the street and not having anything to help myself with. So that positivity comes from a long time of being resilient and knowing that it's not going to stop me. I also think there's so many other people. There are Olympic gold medalists who have type 1 diabetes. There are professional athletes and professional actresses and models who have type 1. It's just about how you carry it. And we all very much carry it differently. I just choose to be positive about it because it's not going to stop me. Diabetes ain't going to stop me.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love the attitude. You really have to be a warrior when you have type 1 because you will have to manage it for the rest of your life. And I'm sure there are some days that don't feel quite as positive. But it sounds like for the most part, you really do try to stay optimistic about it and stay strong about it. I'm wondering if you could tell us a bit about how your view of like food and nutrition has changed with this disease. Because I know, with diet culture and diet mentality, I always bring it back to that. But there's this huge fear around sugar and carbs. And I kind of like to dispel some of that thinking for people because of what I've learned from my type 1 client, which is like sugar is the thing that saves her life at times. And I imagine you kind of have this whole new view of like food and even maybe body image. Can you speak to that?
Absolutely. The main difference for me in this conversation is my celiac disease because I've already grew up to be hyper aware of what I was consuming. The first week that I transitioned from the hospital into back to my home, I did not know what I was supposed to be doing, and I purged everything in the house. I got rid of all the sugar. I cried and threw away some of my favorite cookies. And I definitely had this stigma, and there is a stigma behind type 1 that we are not allowed to have sugar. They say some of the worst things you can say to a diabetic is like, should you be eating that? The answer is we can eat whatever we want as long as we take the insulin for it. But sugar and carbohydrates are a friend. They're essential fuel for the brain. They're essential fuel for the muscles. And trying to live in a low carb world as a type 1 is a big mistake. You need to have the juice. You need to have the sugar available for yourself. There are times like, for example, when it's 2:00 in the morning and my CGM goes off, which is my continuous glucose monitor, and I have to wake up and slam fruit snacks at 2:00. That's not my favorite. There are times where I would really like to not be doing this, but you really have no choice. And diabetes forces your hand in this moment, or you might be even eating dinner with your family and actively having low blood sugar, which is probably the most frustrating when you're eating, but your blood sugar isn't high enough. So your body is shaking like a leaf and you just have to continuously drink juice. So the biggest points for maintaining my glucose levels are protein and fat. Those are two things that really help stabilize blood sugar. Dietary fat helps slow the absorption of glucose into the bloodstream. So we tend to stay full or more satiated for at least 2 to 3 hours longer than simply a carb by itself. So if I am having a low, I'm a big fan of dried fruit. I tend to do as much dried fruit as I can to avoid artificial sugar. When I'm finally coming up from my low, I'll have a piece of jerky. I'll have a little bit of peanut butter. I'll have some kind of nut to help stabilize it. So I'm less likely to be, actually my fiance calls it the roller coaster. He's like, man, diabetes is just an everyday roller coaster that you just can't get off of. And I'm like, that is such a good analogy. You're strapped in, but you can control how fast that roller coaster goes when you're very mindful of your portions of your carbohydrates, meal timing, and that protein fat. Just really can't speak to enough of how that helps stay regulated and maintaining those levels so you're not just chronically in the roller coaster ride.
Can you talk to us about breakfast, lunch, and dinner, like your go-tos? Like, let's start, let's start with breakfast, lunch, dinner. What's your go-to breakfast, lunch, dinner?
It's a great question. I'm a big protein eater in the morning, so it's almost always eggs. And we're blessed. My mother-in-law has a hobby farm, so we get a lot of farm fresh eggs, and I am soaking that up right now. So we are big eggs. We do at least 2 to 3 fried eggs, scrambled eggs, over easy, whatever it is. And then my fat. So I always cook in full fat butter. My Irish roots tingle from my Kerrygold butter using our eggs. And then typically fruit. I'm a big fan of kiwis, lower glycemic fruit like raspberries, blueberries, strawberries, and then some kind of animal-based protein. So I love my bacon. We do sausage, turkey bacon. Keeping it really high in fat and protein actually lowers cravings for sugar towards the afternoon. So again, that fat and carbohydrate density, predominantly carbs coming from fruit in the morning, really pushes me till lunchtime, which is, again, more protein, chicken wraps, vegetables, salad, peppers. And then dinner rolls around, and my main carbohydrate around dinner is typically sweet potatoes. They're lower glycemic than white and red potatoes. They taste delicious. And when I add them with we do a lot of salmon, a lot of asparagus, a lot of broccoli. That meal together actually does not spike my blood sugar whatsoever. So it's this really beautiful kind of end of day big carb that I get to have that carries my blood sugar level into the next morning, so that I'm very unlikely to wake up with a low in the middle of the night. Unless there's a glass of wine, I should be very transparent. If I do drink a glass of wine, that is more likely to keep me low in the morning, which some people believe alcohol spikes us. Actually, quite the opposite. Alcohol drops blood sugar. Not immediately, we'll have a bigger spike, but then once that liver starts to metabolize any ethanol, the blood sugar plummets. So I'm very cautious about anything that's very much a special occasion, like Valentine's Day or whatever. So sometimes that happens, but when I keep the protein high and the fat high and very mindful of those carbohydrates, I tend to need less insulin and I just have more energy compared to really spiking, having to take more insulin during the day, possibly going low, which during client calls is not ideal. So trying to keep those numbers up as high as I can so that I'm feeling good almost 100% of the time.
And what
I have
about
to ask you
treats?
too,
Wait,
where do you
can
plug
you?
your training in? Do you plug your
Yes.
training in, like if you're strength training and cardio training? And I want to talk on about, because you mentioned that you can run now, which decreases your blood sugar. So where do you plug in your strength days and your cardio days? Are they in the morning, after breakfast, evening? What works best for you?
Yeah, great questions. Great, both questions. Snacks, a lot of dried fruit, a lot of nuts, a lot of protein. That's my favorite. Cheese, also, cheese is like holy grail. My French, I love cheese. She's a big cheese girl. Training right now is a little different for me because I'm training for a half marathon. So I'm doing both. I wake up every morning, I walk the dog for 30 minutes. My shepherd loves this part of our day. And then I typically strength train after my first couple calls, 12 to 1 o'clock, about 30-ish minutes, predominantly love to strength train. So my barbells, my squats, my deadlifts, whatever I need to do for that day. And then I run in the evening. So the meal before my run in the evening, super crucial. I got to make sure that my blood sugar is so stable before I go out for a run. Sometimes my fiance will call it unsupported. If I don't bring anything with me, he's like riding his bike behind me or like running behind me so that I'm not dropping low out in, 3 miles away from the house or 10 miles away from the house. At first, I used to stagger the days. I would do cardio 2 times a week, like a Tuesday, Thursday, strength training Monday, Wednesday, Friday. This new routine, I'm about 11 weeks out from the race. I can't stop strength training because I don't want to. I don't want to lose the gains. I don't want to lose the strength. I'm not trying to get slimmer. I'm just trying to complete the half marathon. But the carbohydrate before, even if that's like half a liquid IV, or I put a lot of lemon juice into my water and maybe like I don't like the Crystal Light options, but anything that's going to be a little bit of sugar just to keep me sustained, or I run with the juice box just in case I go down while I'm there. The biggest impeder is when I'm having low blood sugar before I want to exercise. That is the most frustrating thing, or a low blood sugar in the shower. Those could be tied for worst case scenarios. I'm also very stubborn. So there are moments where I don't necessarily react to low blood sugar in time. And then that unfortunately means I'm having a really aggressive low compared to one that I probably could have nipped in the bud if I had been a little bit more proactive on it. But again, preparation, really trying to be intentional about the meal timing. With aerobic and anaerobic activity, the science shows us that with cardio and more aerobic based activities, the blood sugar tends to go downward, and that with strength training and anaerobic activity, it's accelerated. So you might see type 1s in the gym literally taking insulin in a squat rack or on a bench because our blood sugar is now spiking from the adrenaline. What I've learned is when I do both, if I do HIIT style training, if I do cardio to warm up and then strength training for 30 minutes, I'm pretty stable. So combining them does a lot of good for me when it comes to blood sugar and for energy. And I'm less likely to just tank after running 6 miles or lifting for an hour. So finding that sweet spot did take me quite a bit of time and a lot of trial and error. And then again, just being prepared for those moments so that it's a solid workout and less diabetic infested, if you will.
Yeah, that's so interesting because, and I imagine it still varies. Like you said, like if you do everything the same every day, you could still see different numbers and different levels. I noticed with my client, our programming is typically similar. We have like main lift, some supersets, a cardio-ish, Metcon-ish thing at the end. It doesn't stray too much from that. And yet sometimes she's having a low during the session. Sometimes she's spiking during the session. And she doesn't even, I mean, she has lived with this disease for like 20 years. And she's like, who knows? Who's to say? It could be anything. But I'm curious if you could talk about like, you know, how you manage that during a session, one, like personally, but two, I'm sure there are people out there who don't have type 1 who are thinking like, oh, strength training spikes my blood sugar. Well, I don't want to do that. But why is it still good to strength train, like whether you're diabetic or not? And also like someone who doesn't have diabetes, their body may not be reacting in the same way. Sorry, those are like 3 very crazy separate questions, but just anything you have to share about that.
Yeah, absolutely. There's 2 key points that really help me with actively training. One are the days that I'm wearing my CGM, which is my continuous glucose monitor. That keeps me so at the top of mind of my blood sugar. So when I'm training, I know well in advance if my blood sugar is about to be dropping like a bag of bricks or accelerating. The good news is for our non-diabetic listeners out there, you don't have to worry about your blood sugar spiking doing strength training. Your beautiful pancreas is working overtime and keeping that in line with yourself. For people with type 2 that may feel a little bit unsure about that, adding in that cardio component, again, really stabilizes the blood sugar. And movement is medicine. I like to say motion is lotion. So adding this kind of activity is not going to make it worse. It's only going to make it better, especially strength training. My specific case with diabetes is because I am very muscular. I'm actually very insulin sensitive. So I don't need a ton of insulin to be dropping my blood sugar. When we have less lean mass and more adipose tissue, our body decreases insulin sensitivity. So if we are categorized as overweight or not as muscular, we're going to need more insulin to regulate that. But for me, already being, actually my endocrinologist calls me their favorite type 1. I won't say who it is, but I'm very blessed when he always says that, because it comes down to I'm taking very little insulin because my movement truly is my form of medicine. It's my preferred form. It was my preferred form of medicine even before I was taking insulin. So that is such a big part of my everyday chronic mover to maintain my, probably why I can't stop strength training while I'm technically supposed to be running a half marathon, because I like how it feels. It feels so good for me. Then when towards the end of my day, when dinner rolls around, that sweet potato is doing only the positive and none of the negative repercussions of carbs, because my energy expenditure was so high during that day that I don't need as much insulin, which to me is like a perfect day. That's like a diabetes 10 out of 10 kind of day. And I definitely contribute that to strength training.
Brittany, are there any plans to do a full marathon?
Ugh, disgusting. Probably. Honestly, the half. So Abel is a marathon runner. He's running his 7th marathon the week before my first half. So that's what inspired me, because I'm grossly competitive. And I was like, he doesn't just get to be doing races. I also want to be doing this. However, I'm more of a triathlete. I like to swim, I like to run, I want to bike, and I don't want to do like a full Ironman. So maybe to be continued. We'll see. She's nuts. She probably will. So we'll see how that goes.
What's your plan for fueling? Because I'm gonna geek out here because I went down the endurance path for a long time, and like, what's your plan to fuel during, let's say, hour and a half plus of running?
Absolutely. I got myself one of the cute vests. So I got
Expensive
my,
vests.
yeah, talk about a gift to myself. Wow. Hello. Very, very surprised. That is going to be the game changer. And I'm going to way overpack the glucose tablets that I need, the gel packs that I need. When I did a 10K, I was really surprised the amount of Gatorade fuel stations there were. So that really helped because I was very nervous. Like, what if I go down out here and I just don't have what I need, which is a huge fear of mine. Keeping that vest packed. I'm going to basically be a person running with like fruit snacks, juice boxes, glucose tabs, gel tablets, the jelly beans, little protein jelly beans, like anything I can to keep that number up. And then probably carrying insulin with me just in case I'm out there and for every reason I'm spiking from over fueling. I will need to be able to regulate that insulin level. So it's going to be a slippery slope, but that's why we practice.
Darian, there you go. So you got another runner, another strength bred runner coming. What do you think?
Okay, I'm getting there. I'm actually getting there. I was looking up sneakers the other day because normally I just wear my flat Vans because I'm a lifter. So I was looking up some sneakers. So I'm in the pre-contemplation/contemplation phase, but we'll see. But Brittany, I'm so curious, like, what if you are out there and something happens? Do you have like do you wear a wristband that says that you're type 1? Do you have like the emergency stuff on your phone?
All of the above. I have all of the emergency information on my phone and on my Apple Watch. So if in the event, it literally says, if found unresponsive, call 911. It lists my family's phone number, my fiance's phone number. And then actually as a gift, when we were first together, Abel bought me it's actually a gold bracelet that says type 1 diabetic because the ones they wanted us to buy were like not that cute. That used to be the problem. I was like, it's just not that cute. I don't want to wear it. I'm a gold girl. I don't wear silver, which is so superficial. But now I have this adorable bracelet. And I was gifted one from, actually, we call them diabuddies. If you have a diabetic friend, they're your diabuddies. And I will approach a diabetic in the wild. If I see somebody with a CGM, if I see somebody with a pump, I will come up to you and I will be like, hello, I'm also type 1. I will hug you. How are you doing? Like, how are you really doing? Because you can ask diabetics and we'll tell you we're fine, but that's probably not the truth.
Yeah.
So just getting into that community of if this happens to me, not being afraid to ask for help. The CGMs can be shared for children with their parents, with their family members, with siblings. So my fiance and my mother have track of my blood sugar whenever I wear my CGM, which is always fun. I'll get a text message, right? Like, you're going, hi, what did you do? What are you doing? Are you okay? Sometimes we turn off those notifications when we need to, but keeping that number shared really helps me become more mindful of it because I know they're also seeing those numbers. And sometimes if I go somewhere like the gym I'm a patron at, the front desk people know that I'm diabetic. When I first signed up, I was like, hey, I just want you to know I have type 1 diabetes. If you ever see me on the floor, I'm not resting. Okay. You're never going to catch me laying down in this gym. This is what's going to happen. So not being afraid. I'm not afraid to share that. I'm not afraid to dose in public. I'm not afraid to go up to strangers. I will let people know that they're not alone in this because there is very much a stigma behind type 1 that we somehow gave it to ourselves. We somehow caused this disease, and that is not the truth. Nobody can give themselves type 1 diabetes. It's your pancreas just choosing to crap out. For lack of a better term.
Brittany, can you repeat that to people? Is that what you just said there? Because I think people should to take note.
Absolutely. Type 1 diabetes is not a self-inflicted disease. This is something that is simply autoimmune driven, can also be hereditary. A lot of the times, if we have family members who have type 1, we have a higher likelihood of developing it as well. Our children have a higher likelihood if we have two type 1 parents, very high probability that child will have type 1, but no amount of cereal, no amount of donuts, no amount of soda is going to give you type 1 diabetes.
That's so good. So, gosh, that's awesome. So I'm a pre-diabetic, and I went through a long, like even when I was doing ultras and Ironmans, I was running about 70 miles, 80 miles a week. And even with all that running, I was still pre-diabetic. And I kept telling the doctors, your tests are wrong. I'm good. But no, genetics are so incredibly powerful. But enough about me. I wanted to get back on those listening with type 1. What are your best resources for these people other than talk to you because I think we could all use a little bit of Brittany Knight in our lives, but talk to them about what are the best resources that they can lean on.
Absolutely. The local communities, the hospital I graduated diabetes from, I guess, had a diabetic educator. And I did go to see this individual, which was helpful. But the community outreach, especially on social media, there's a page in California called You're Just My Type 1, which is a girl roughly my age, 25 years diabetic, who does seminars all over the world. And she'll put together these big conventions. And then you get to be in a room full of diabetics, which is really fun. Lots of sugar, lots of highs, lots of lows, all kinds of good devices going off at the same time. Not being afraid to reach out to that kind of community forum, even on Facebook, type 1, even on Reddit. There's so many different forms of connection within local community centers, local hospitals. I'm very blessed that the endocrinologist I have right now also has type 1. So that was such a blessing when I walked into that clinic and pleaded my case and they were like, I also live this. It blew my mind. It gave me such a level of relief that there's somebody out there who lives this every day too, who isn't just giving me information for no reason. One of the most random places I received the best information from was actually from a diabetic cookbook I ordered off of Amazon. And the first chapter was all things type 1 diabetes about pancreatic failure and DKA, multiple daily injections, insulin pumps. And that was my little diabetic Bible for the first 6 months. I was looking at all the recipes. I was actually blown away on the information I received there. That's really the best advice I can get. And trying to find other diabuddies. Like I said, I've connected diabetics in the wild and have a little, I call them the diababes, my little diababes chat with other diabetics that I've met. And if I meet another one, I throw them into the message so that we can all be a part of this together. The Just My Type 1 is also a huge component of getting insulin and devices and supplies to people who cannot, who either can't afford, have been cut off by insurance, are just simply running out. And they're able to spread a lot of awareness and give devices to people for very minimal cost. I've actually given some CGMs to that page before to give to other people who could be using it.
That's amazing. I want to ask you first about how someone should go about finding the right provider for them, because it sounds like it may not always be super easy to find someone you connect with, because I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, your endocrinologist is essentially your primary care provider at this point, like someone you have to meet with and talk with regularly. So I'm wondering if you have any like tips for finding who the right provider is for you.
Truthful answer to this that is so geographically specific, which is very, very unfair. Thankfully, the insurance I have offers me a lot of solutions for this, but I've only been diabetic 5 years. May will be my diaversary. You can use a lot of diabetic puns for this, just so you guys know. I've had 4 different endocrinologists in 5 years. And this last one, when I moved to Salem, was my one with type 1, which is like chef's kiss, wherever this woman goes, I will be going kind of situation. That is truly the biggest struggle with getting diagnosed with any chronic autoimmune disorder, especially diabetes, which is the most expensive chronic illness in the world, predominantly in America. Insulin is so expensive. The CGMs are not cheap. The needles are not cheap. Like no part of this is, inexpensive. So really doing your research, I would apply to multiple endocrinologists before I got accepted. Essentially, you have to have a referral from your insulin or from your insurance to actually get in. But you're right. I see my endocrinologist every 3 months, every 6 months, way more than I see my primary care provider. But it was a lot of research. I really had to look in, and it was a shot in the dark that she actually had type 1. So reaching out, it's also very state specific. If you have a state specific insurance, you can't just go out of state to get insulin. I had moved to Idaho, and that was a whole delay in care. It was almost 9 months before I could actually get prescriptions refilled. So again, preparation, education, asking your primary care if they know any good, that sounds aggressive, any successful endocrinologists that can really help push those prescriptions through, because that is the biggest hurdle, is the pharmacy, for sure.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like type 1, it's not an easy road that you now have to drive down. But it sounds like from the way you're talking about it, and we've already touched on like how positive you are, but there's a lot of like little blessings along the way with this community you've built and these resources you found and different programs and your now ability to be able to help others who are, dealing with or managing type 1 diabetes every day. So that's really nice to hear, and I'm wondering if you think about it that way, like this is this big struggle, but there's a lot of light that's come from it.
I definitely do. And again, positivity is a choice. It's not every day I wake up and I'm like, oh, sunshine, rainbows, shot in the stomach. It just has to do with mindset. And there really is a very large community. When I was working in a clinic, I had a patient who had type 1 whose sister was a diabetic educator, and she threw this diabetic retreat, and I thought I was signing up as a participant. I accidentally signed up as a volunteer, which turns out it was for children, so that actually worked out. But I was in this group, and it's called Beyond Type 1, and it's children all in grade school who got to bring a friend or a family member and be in a room with adults who had type 1. So at lunch, we all checked our blood sugar together. We all dosed for insulin. We got to run around and play sports and do tie-dye. So these kids who, bless their hearts, I always think about me at 25 being diagnosed as a competent adult, but a child being diagnosed with something it must be so confusing and so frustrating. So to have this group and to be around them and to show them that it's going to be okay.
I feel emotional about it too, Brittany, because children should not have to, just the amount that I see like my friend and client put in and that I know you put in, to see a child, that is hard. That is really hard.
Yeah, absolutely.
No,
Groups...
tears on the podcast. That is a strict no. These microphones are not waterproof.
Joey, how are you not crying? Think about your children. Can you imagine?
Well, we got some type 2 diabetes, and my uncle's on dialysis right now. My uncle Gabe, from years of not taking care of himself,
Yeah.
But
yes.
Brittany, I want to get back to that, like your mindset, right? And we're all going to step in SHIT from time to time. But where did you pick that up? Did you pick it up from Abel? By the way, I want to give a shout out to Abel. He sounds like a solid human being, following you on, not obviously proposing to you, yes, but then following you on your runs if he needs to and whatnot. So where did you pick that up? Tell us where we can learn.
Totally. Dude, big shout out to Abel. I call him my stable Abel. He's so stable, and he's really jumped in. He didn't know anything about diabetes when we first got together. So he's like, you're like my little diabetic Wonder Woman. You just go out there and you crank through this. Even when I have really, really bad days or it's 2 a.m. and I'm drinking juice, he's like up in bed with me, making sure I'm not alone. He bought me a little literal baby mini fridge for my side of the bed that's stocked full of juice. I keep insulin in there so I don't have to get up out of bed. So he is so solid. Love him. Love you. Big shout out. But the positivity, man, that is definitely a choice. I grew up with very supportive, loving parents who really supported me through all of my movement. And again, I knew it wasn't going to knock me down. Like, this is just my new normal. This is my new reality. And you can choose to lay down or you can choose to get up. And I'm not laying down. Not laying down at the gym, not laying down in real life, not going to give up on myself. For essentially also the fear of the non-compliance. I don't want to lose my vision. I don't want to lose any extremities. I don't want my kidneys to fail. And I want to be around a long time. So if that means grabbing the reins on your health the minute that you can, and that's a big thing that I preach, don't wait until it's too late to start taking care of yourself, because you can't afford to at that point. If you are preactive, wow. If you're proactive about taking care of yourself, you have less issues moving forward. So the side effects aren't so aggressive. And with the high blood sugar, that was one of the DKA symptoms I had. I literally couldn't see. I was having a peripheral flash in my eyeball. Things would, I call it like go gadget. It would like zoom in and out of things. And so that initially was like a big red flag, like something is going wrong neurologically here. And if I don't make a change on this, I might literally end up blind. And I don't want that for myself. I don't want that for anybody. So you got no choice but to take care of yourself is really the truth. And maybe that manifests itself in positivity for me because I'm already just a positive person.
Yeah, that's awesome. Should we do some overrated, underrated? Oh, wait, did I say over, under? We touched on a lot of these, but I think it's important just to drive the point home. So this is just our kind of rapid fire. We're going to throw some ideas at you, and you can say like overrated or underrated. The first one I want to start with is hyper focusing on your numbers and your levels.
It's a 50-50. It's kind of an over under. It's imperative to know those numbers, but don't let it become hyper obsessive where it's controlling every move. There's definitely a wiggle room for, I should know this before I eat this whole pint of ice cream, and not like, well, now I can't go for a walk because my blood sugar is too high. So medium rated on that one.
Perfect.
Okay, Brittany, we're going to go into sleep. How important is sleep for those with diabetes, type 1 or type 2?
Wildly underrated. So imperative. Sleep is where all the physiological adaptations occur for us. So sleep, like you can't get enough. And I am very sleep intentional. Your girl goes to bed. I go to bed. Okay, I ain't staying up late. I'm drinking water, doing my face mask, ASMR, going to sleep. Get that sleep in, people.
Okay, let's go to stress management. You talked about this a little bit. Underrated, overrated.
Super underrated. Again, that stress level. If our household is stressed, my blood sugar is high. So one of our biggest positives about me and Abel is we are not stressed people. Like my career is not stressful. Diabetes is stressful, but keeping things low really helps maintain those numbers so it's less of a problem.
Everyone talks about carbs. Everyone talks about protein. How about fats? Overrated, underrated?
Underrated. Underrated. Fat is the fuel that we're talking about. Fat does not spike glucose levels, so it's always a friend. Unless you're lactose intolerant, then like tread lightly. But keep that cheese coming, keep those nuts and seeds coming, those healthy cooking oils, so essential for stabilizing blood sugar.
Okay, I think we could just do one more. This might not be a super fast one, but your CGM and any other devices, like it sounds like you don't wear like a glucose pump. Is that, or could you explain
Correct.
that a little and then kind of give an overrated, underrated?
Yeah, absolutely. I would call that a medium rated as well. The CGMs are just continuous glucose monitors. You may see this on people. It's very commonly worn on the back of our tricep. Sometimes it's on the stomach, can be on the legs. That is simply a needle. It's a 3 millimeter, 32 gauge needle that's chronically in your arm that's checking your blood sugar through interstitial fluid, and then actually Bluetoothing that number to your phone or to your watch. Super helpful. It decreases what we call finger pricking. So we typically take a needle to our fingers, stab ourselves in the finger, stick out the blood, put the blood on, wait 10 seconds. The CGM is instantaneously uploading blood sugar every 5 minutes. Absolutely game changer, especially for kiddos who can't regulate this on their own, aren't even old enough to speak, who have type 1. The pumps are insulin pumps. And a lot of these, they're actually becoming very discreet. They tend to look very small. Sometimes they look like little pagers. They're always around our stomach area. Those are working as an external pancreas. So instead of giving yourself multiple daily injections, shots, which is how I choose, we call that MDI, the pumps are actively Bluetoothing to the CGM. So the pump gives you the insulin that your body needs to stay in range with your blood sugar. And for a non-diabetic, your blood sugar should be anywhere between 60 to 95. For type 1s, we have a little bit more wiggle room. I'm anywhere during the day above 100, below 200. So I'm trying to stay in this range so that I have less complications. The pumps are really helpful. However, here's the real deal. You can only wear a CGM on your body in the same spot for 10 days. You can only wear a pump on your body in the same spot for 4 days. So imagine 25 years of diabetes. And you have to change that pump site every 4 days. Can't go in the same spot because of scar tissue and buildup. It becomes less effective. Or I followed this one girl. She's amazing. The diabetic kinetic. She's a fitness girl that I like to follow on Instagram, made this cute video, and she posts her site change, and she's really stoked, and she's got 300 milliliters of insulin in her stomach, and she goes out the bathroom door and her pump gets caught on the doorknob, rips the pump right out of her body, and all that insulin falls on the floor, and her insurance doesn't cover another pump for another 4 months. So there are so many pieces of devices that are helpful for us, but to a certain extent, where it becomes very cumbersome, it becomes ineffective. You bake in the sun for too long and your CGM dies. You run out of insulin. So now you're not even getting insulin through your pump. You walk through TSA, that's always fun. TSA and your arm goes off because you're wearing a CGM and you have to speak in another language while you're setting off the metal detector. So there's so many ways that they're helpful and really not helpful in the same way as convenience, which is why it's our choice. You can do your multiple daily injections. You can choose to have a pump. Whatever is really the best for you individually, it's how you should be treating your diabetes.
Brittany, I got news for you, though. There's a way around TSA.
Oh, tell me.
Just have your own have your own private jet. That's it. Brittany, this has been absolutely
Joey.
awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure.
I can speak for everyone listening. I'm going to take away your attitude. I'm going to take away your never give up, always shine. So I want you to keep pushing, keep going, and congrats so much on that engagement, okay?
Thank you so much. I appreciate you,
Brittany. That was so helpful, and you got me crying. So, it's always a good day when we can cry together.
It is a long time since we've cried together.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you guys are so welcome. Thank you so much for having me. I talk diabetes anytime.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode. We hope you came away with a lot of great information and just enjoyed listening. If you like this podcast, even just a little bit, it would help us so much if you could leave a comment, like us, subscribe, follow. That would just help us so much to get more listeners and more reach. Also, please check the show notes. We have links there. If you want, you can work specifically with Brittany, but you can also click the link just to try us out for 14 days free. Get matched with your very own personal trainer.
Keep moving, baby. Stay positive like Brittany. We love you guys. Talk to you next time.
Bye-bye.